on this wonderful Tuesday morning here in Steamboat Springs, Colorado. Want to be sure that you are seeing the slide here. I'd like to start with the slide because I think it makes a good point. So on the slide, you should be seeing two frogs sitting on a log. And if you can see that, go ahead and raise your hand if you are on the phone, or type in yes if you are on the webcast. Okay. Well, good day to you. Welcome to the call. This is 7 simple strategies to eliminate workplace stress for busy business owners, managers, and leaders. And my name is Christina Haxton, and I'm so glad you took the time out of your busy day to join me today. I absolutely believe you're going to be taking some things away today that you're going to be able to use immediately after the call to be able to reduce, eliminate, or leverage stress. So you're in the definitely in the right place if you're a busy professional, manager, leader at any level, and you feel overwhelmed by having too much to do, not enough time to get it all done. You're challenged with making quick and good decisions under pressure. You're convinced that your team, or maybe a member or two of your team, just aren't motivated as they should be. You want practical tools so you can do your best work and feel more productive and satisfied at the end of the day instead of feeling like you're on a hamster on a spinning wheel. If you notice you're spending too much time at work and wonder if your family notices you're working so much and not home when you say you're going to be home for dinner or for special events. And if you wonder if you're headed for burn-up or burnout, today you're going to discover 7 practical strategies you can use immediately to create a work environment to inspire innovation and initiative in yourself and your team. Today, there's a lot of information. This is actually based on a 21 ways to eliminate and leverage stress program that I'm teaching, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that at the end of the call, but it's a 6-session program. So I've pulled some very practical strategies just to highlight today so that you can walk away from this workshop and have some tools you can use immediately. So the strategies that I've pulled today are grouped into 3 sections, and you're actually going to get more than 7, but for anybody who's counting, you're going to be able to today know 3 small changes to your work environment that can give you 5 to 20 hours of more time a week. And I'll tell you about one of my clients who actually gained somewhere between 10 and 15 hours, more hours a week in his day. You're going to learn about lizard brain, how to turn it, what it is, how to turn it off. And you're going to learn about a word, that one word. If you don't take away anything else, you'll learn about one word you should avoid using at all costs because of what it does to other people's brains, basically. You're going to learn how conflict and stress spreads like a virus through your team and how to immediately stop it from running its course. We're going to talk a little bit at the end about the Sustainable Leaders Master Class, talking about taking action and getting a jump start to achieve your goals and reducing or eliminating stress in 2013. If you notice, if you're on the webcast, you've got some buttons on the left-hand side. You've got a Q&A box to answer questions, make comments. You've got a Join Masterclass button if you are interested in joining our Masterclass, which starts next week on the 27th. And then also, if you want more information about the Masterclass, you can go to sustainable-leaders.com /stress. That's hard to say. If you would like more information, or I'm sorry, /events and events/stress, or just stress. I think you should be able to get there okay. Anyway, well, why don't we go ahead and looking at this 2 frogs on the log. If one of these frogs decides to jump off the log, how many frogs are left? So if you are on the webcast, go ahead and indicate how many frogs are left. 2 frogs are sitting on a log. One decides to jump off. How many are left? Okay, so we've got some people saying 1. We've got another saying 1. We've got one saying 2. Okay. Well, I have news for you. If two frogs sitting on a log and one decides to jump off, you actually only still have two because one decided. He didn't actually do it. So the reason I like this slide is because I don't want you to be like a frog on a log. I want you not just to decide you're hearing some strategies that are a good idea. I want you to take action. So throughout this webinar, please just pick one thing that excites you that you'd like to try and see what kind of results you get. So 7 simple strategies to eliminate stress. So if you're paid to think, or if you pay others to think, unrecognized and unresolved stress will erode your leadership effectiveness, and you're going to find out why today. My name is Christina Haxton, and I am a leadership speaker, author of the Character-Based Leader, and executive coach. First of all, let me talk just a minute about what a sustainable leader is, because a sustainable leader is really what my big passion is in life, is to be able to develop and create leaders who are built to last. So sustainable leaders are built to last from the inside out and the outside in. I want you to be able to harness your potential to drive positive change, inspire your team, and be able to be built to last and resilient through whatever comes your way as a leader. And using proven strategies based in brain science, I assist busy business owners, managers, and leaders at all levels how to recognize, eliminate, and yes, even leverage stress. Here are some of the client organizations that I have worked with in the past and I continue to do today. And I assist managers and leaders at all levels to become more effective, productive, creative-focused, and satisfied. But I have to warn you, if you use some of the tools, you will get results, and you could have some fun. Well, maybe not that kind of fun. So today, this is what we're going to cover: why resolving workplace stress matters, why avoid is not a strategy for eliminating stress. We're going to discuss 7 strategies, very specific things to do to eliminate stress. We're going to talk about why understanding is overrated and how you can take action beyond this webinar and teleseminar. And then I'm going to be stopping a couple of times to take questions and comments, not only from the people on the phone, but also people on the webinar. So let's get started. Has anybody ever said to you, in response to your saying, oh, I'm just stressed out, I can't focus, I can't sleep, I'm so frustrated, I don't know, I'm having a hard time making decisions, getting organized, prioritizing, whatever. And somebody says something like, don't worry, it's just stress. Well, if avoid is your strategy for stress and you are in a position of managing others or leadership, I got to tell you, you're headed for burnout or burnout. It's pretty bad news if avoid is your strategy. So we're going to talk about stress, and we're going to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugliness of stress. Well, first of all, stress isn't all bad. Stress is actually necessary for performance. As you can see here, we have an optimum level of stress, because if we didn't have any stress at all, basically what would happen is we have low stress and low performance. We're basically asleep. You probably have some people on your team maybe that are in that state more often than others. And as we begin to experience some information, some stress, again, just some we get elevated to a certain level of alertness. David Rock, in his book, just blanked on the name. I apologize. And he wrote a really good book about stress at work, and he likens it to having your first maybe cup of coffee or tea in the morning with just a little bit of caffeine, just a little bit. You're more alert than you were when you were asleep, and then add maybe a little bit more caffeine and into your morning, and you have this optimal level of stress. This is what's called the inverted U, or this peak performance graph. So basically, you have an optimal level of performance with an optimal level of stress. However, you add a little bit more stress to that, and you end up having anxiety, cognitive disorganization, or disorganized thoughts. And we don't want to know what happens down here. But if you can imagine, if you're in a position where you're paid to think, this is not good. As I see it, I kind of divided stress up into different original sources of stress. So one of the original sources of stress, as I describe in the sixth session program, Eliminating Stress, basically is what I'll consider internal stress. And internal stress are those thoughts and worries and fears and shoulds and those things that keep us up at night. And that's what I call internal stress. We basically also have external stress. External stress is when somebody else says or does something out of our control that causes stress. Conflict is also another source of stress, or if we are exposed to conflict, or if we are involved in conflict, or if we anticipate conflict is also a source of stress. And another source of stress here is called leadership stress or power stress, and that is the stress that those of you who are in a position of influence over others experience on top of all these other sources of stress because you are responsible for their well-being. So when we are in this state of stress, this disorganization beyond that peak performance, basically I call that lizard brain. And when the lizard is driving, the thinking brain is in the back seat. I'll tell you what I mean about that here. Just remember, suffice to say, that lizard brain is the part of our brain that's responsible for fight, flight, or freeze, and it causes stress. The part of our brain that's responsible for thinking brain is actually located in an entirely different part of our brain. And when we're in thinking brain and we are at an optimal level of stress, we actually can be very creative and innovative. However, when the lizard's driving the bus and, for example, when you've been in an argument or you're in an argument with somebody or disagreement and about 20 minutes later you go, darn, I wish I would have said that. Well, what that is that's when the lizard's driving the bus and about 20 minutes later your thinking brain gets reoxygenated, or you probably take quite a few deep breaths, or you get a different perspective for whatever reason, or some more time passes and you have that aha moment. That aha moment comes from that prefrontal cortex, so that front part of your brain that lies behind your forehead. And lizard brain and thinking brain don't occur simultaneously in our brain. So stress causes lizard brain. So I'd like to talk a little bit about some universal lizard brain words. These are words that invoke that fight, flight, or freeze response in people. So the one word you want to avoid using when somebody does something that frustrates you is the word why, in the form of a question. Why did you do that? Why are you always late? Why can't you be on time? Why is the report late? Why didn't you perform? So basically, when we use the word why, and we ask it in such a way that we're frustrated and that tone of voice comes across, what we do is we flip that switch in the listener and we invoke this defensive response. Those of you probably know that if you've ever used this word and you're using it, you're asking a question, why did you, why don't you, why can't you, out of frustration. You know what? The answer probably doesn't really matter that much. You're asking it because you're frustrated. You're not necessarily asking it because the answer would make much of a difference, at least in that heated moment. So when you're in lizard brain and you ask the word why, your eyebrows are probably furrowed. You're probably holding your breath. You might be tensing your jaw or clenching your fists, or there's some level of lizard brain in you asking that question. And because lizard brain is contagious, yes, emotions are contagious from one person to another, and so why is a word I would like you to eliminate. I will tell you in our strategy section which 2 words to use instead and 1 phrase to use instead of why. Some of the other universal lizard brain words, and I say universal because they invoke stress in ourselves and other people, is the word no, and actually no is something that we use probably quite often, maybe too often. And again, I will tell you what you can use in a little bit here. Absolutes, you always, you never. Okay, so basically when someone uses an absolute like accuses you. You are always late. That person's probably, their brain is probably trying to retrieve the moment, the time last week or last year they were actually on time, for example. Their brain tries to reach back into the archives and looks for evidence that you're wrong. And the minute somebody's brain starts to look for evidence that the other person speaking to them or accusing them of always or never doing something, they actually stop listening. And as you know, nothing actually always happens. Sometimes those people that are chronically late actually really are on time, but what you notice is when they're late. So words like you should, those invoke what I call that internal stress, those beliefs and rules that may or may not be very realistic that we tend to follow, and sometimes we don't even realize we're following them. So in the number 6, I have yours go here. If you are on the webcast, I would like you to type in what your universal lizard brain word or phrase is. What is the phrase or word that really frustrates you when people use it with you? So go ahead and type that in the webcast. Maybe even raise your hand if you are on the phone if you have a universal lizard brain word that you'd like to let us know about, so we can make sure to avoid it. If you raise your hand by pressing *2, be happy to unmute you so you can let me know what your universal lizard brain word is. Okay. Oh, I don't see any hands. I'll go over to the webcast. But if you are on and would like to raise your hand, universal lizard brain, what's a frustrating word or phrase? I think, here's one. We have somebody who says, you can't. So when someone says you can't, I call that kind of sometimes invokes this oppositional reflex. What do you mean I can't? I want to. Of course I can. Okay. So on the webcast, let's see if we have any universal lizard brain words or phrases. If not, we will move forward. And there is a delay, actually, on the webcast, so I do apologize. If you ask a question or make a comment and I don't see it right away, I will try to go back to it if I miss it for you. All right, so let's go ahead and move forward. So some of the causes of lizard brain or stress: unrealistic deadlines. Those are typically deadlines that are imposed by other people or ourselves. Sometimes if you've ever done that, where you thought you can get something done in a certain amount of time, and it turns out that you are unable to do so for whatever reason. Multitasking, and actually we'll talk a little bit about multitasking here at toward the strategy section. Conflict or perceived or real pressure to do more with less time, less resources, fewer people. And then when other people have emergencies that we have to solve right now, if you are a manager or a leader and you have that open door policy, in other words, you tell people they can come in and ask you questions, or invite you to help them put out fires or crises at any time, they're basically causing lizard brain. So I have some thoughts on open door policies. And we talked a little bit about power stress. Again, if you are in a position of power influence over others, you have to meet payroll, you have to downsize, you have to meet certain budget requirements, and as a result, you have to negatively influence the lives of others in terms of layoffs or cuts in pay and things like that. That actually is a whole additional ballgame. And like I said before, if that's not enough, stress is contagious. Okay, so before we move forward and I tell you what you need to know about your brain, in order for these strategies to make sense, I think it's important for these strategies to make sense so that you will remember to use them. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what you need to know about your brain. But before I do that, I'd like to see if there are any questions about the sources of stress, lizard brain, any of the lizard brain words or situations or sources that we've talked about. So I'm going to jump over to the webcast and see if we have any questions about what I've just presented to you so far, whether you agree or disagree or would like to add to or comment about what we've talked about. Okay. If you are on the call, go ahead and press star 2 to raise your hand, and I will call on you, and you can ask a question or make a comment. Okay, I don't have any questions. Hopefully everything's been very clear. And let me see if I have any questions on the webcast, and we will move forward. Okay, not so far. So what you need to know about your brain to be successful at work. Now again, there's a lot of information I have to share with you, and I really tried to pick out just the important things. I want you just to know there's not going to be a test later or anything like that. I just want you to appreciate some information at a very high level about how your brain works when it comes to communication and motivation and stress. Like I alluded to before, the part of the brain that's responsible for thinking is this purple part right here. It's called the prefrontal cortex. Lizard brain occurs right here, okay? It is a very small part of the brain, but because it's basically very rudimentary, our brain basically organized and was originated right here. So when we started out as early Homo sapiens, basically we started with this whole part right down in here, which is your brainstem. As you can see, that's where lizard brain started, and we used that brain for fight, flight, or freeze for survival, and basically our brain evolved to this whole part here, and all this part over here, and the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for focusing or inhibiting other information or distractions. So inhibiting distractions, making decisions, reasoning, understanding, memorizing or learning. Our prefrontal cortex is, again, very newly evolved part of the brain, and it actually is, if you think about it, being charged by rechargeable batteries or powered by rechargeable batteries. David Rock wrote a book called Your Brain at Work and does a great job explaining these two parts of the brain. So this purple part right here, again, very newly evolved part of the brain, fairly fragile, needs lots of TLC. So those of you who are come home from work and you've been thinking all day, this is why you're exhausted at the end of the day, because thinking creates exhaustion. The other parts of your brain all over here, and I'm hoping you can see these little yellow dots here, these parts of the brain, they're not really powered by rechargeable batteries so much. They're fairly automatic. Thank goodness, right? Or we have to think about breathing. We have to think about every muscle movement we made. We have to think about retrieving every memory, and we just don't. Those are fairly automatic. Okay, so I'm curious. Some of you submitted questions before the webinar. We talked about your biggest source of stress. And those of you on the webinar, those of you on the phone, what is your biggest source of stress? And while you are either raising your hand by pushing star 2 or typing in the Q&A box your biggest source of stress, I'm going to go ahead and mention a couple of sources that people wrote in about ahead of time. So some of the sources, I think one of the biggest sources of stress that I hear are bad bosses. Hopefully you're not a bad boss, but I actually hear quite a few people being very frustrated about the incompetency of a boss or how a boss micromanages. So that's a source of conflict for many people. And having too much to do and with too little time, more demands, more people to manage, I think that that's really one of the biggest sources of stress that my clients come to me with. I will tell you, though, a very interesting statistic that 47% of newly hired executives do not make it past the 18-month mark. They get fired or quit. So that's 47% of newly hired senior level or executive level leaders get fired or quit before the first 18 months anniversary. And it's not because they lack the technical skills. It's because they actually lack the ability to manage stress and people skills. Those are the top two reasons for failure at the executive level. So sustainable leaders basically are those who are able to sustain and last, be happy and satisfied. So biggest source of stress, if there's anybody on the call or on the webcast who wants to add what their biggest source of stress is, I'd love to hear it, and if not, we will go ahead and move forward. Okay, *2 to raise your hand if you are on the phone, and type in the Q&A box your biggest source of stress. Okay, I see a few that are in agreement with the micromanaging boss, too much to do and too little time. All right, so now you're ready for the how-to. So here are our strategies. I want you to show you how to get out of lizard brain and into thinking brain. 7 simple strategies to eliminate stress. Again, we're going to group these into 3 categories. So each one of these is how you can reduce lizard brain. And the other thing I want to share with you is that when we are under stress, the stress hormone that gets released by our brain is called cortisol. Cortisol is a stress hormone. Cortisol is great and wonderful when we are needing to react quickly and then calm down or get back to a quiet state of thinking or physical action. But if we are under kind of fairly even moderate levels of stress, what happens is cortisol is released fairly constantly into our bloodstream, into our system, and cortisol actually reduces our immune system's ability to function. So if you've ever noticed, that you happen to get sick more easily, more susceptible to disease, and other physical ailments, often if you are under kind of chronic stress, then what's happening is your immune system, or the part of our bodies that basically fight off of disease and illness, is very compromised. So when somebody says it's just stress, it's not good advice to disregard it like that. So we're going to start with the first 3 stress solutions. Number 1, switch off electronics, alerts, notifications on your phone and computer. When you are having to use that prefrontal cortex, that part of your brain that's responsible for thinking, writing, being creative, finding solutions, making decisions, writing a program, writing up a proposal, solving a problem, it really can only function with very well focusing on one thing at a time. So up here on the right, you'll see a stage. Think about your prefrontal cortex as basically being under the spotlight, kind of like an actor on a stage. Actors really only like to be the only one on the stage, right? And so because all the attention and the focus and the spotlight's on them. Well, think about your prefrontal cortex like this stage when, only one thought at a time, or one problem at a time, or one project at a time can really truly be focused on well. So that's why number 2, avoid multitasking, is also on my list. Going back to number 1, when we have alerts and notifications and phones ringing, anytime we have to shift our attention, i.e. where our spotlight is focused, we actually have to shift from focusing on one thing to focusing on the second intrusion or the second situation, and our brain gets tired switching back and forth and back and forth. And if you've noticed, you've had those days where you get interrupted a lot, what happens is you do end up feeling exhausted because your brain is working. It's like sprinting back and forth across the stage. And again, think about it being charged by or powered by rechargeable batteries, not 220, rechargeable batteries. And that's why your executive functions are compromised, your thinking's compromised. So avoiding multitasking, we truly don't multitask very effectively or efficiently. I know on most people's job descriptions, somewhere in the list, if not at the end, it says must multitask. Okay, we really don't do even two simple things at once very well, very thoroughly, and very effectively. Those of you who have ever been on the phone talking to somebody and replying to an email at the same time, hit send and realize you just sent it to the wrong person, or you sent it with typos. Know what I'm talking about. So Avoid multitasking at all, especially when what you're working on is extremely important. Number 3, under limiting distractions in terms of strategies, do creative thinking in a quiet place with minimal or no interruptions or distractions. Those of you with an open door policy, I'd highly recommend that if you do want to get some work done well, and it's creative, it requires creative thinking, problem solving, put a sign on your door that says available at a certain time. I think, I'm available at 2, or out, until 12 or until 2:30, or if it's an emergency, please feel free to call. I think, when we invite people to take more action than just open a door and interrupt us, if it truly is an emergency, it gives them a way to prioritize their question or concern. And a lot of times, if you give people a little bit more time, sometimes they actually solve the problem on their own. And so as a manager, instead of solving a problem for somebody and being so quick to do that, if we actually give them a little bit of time along with the kind of the expectation that they're capable of figuring out a solution and not making interrupting us and asking for a solution so easy, we actually don't, we can probably show people that we believe in them and we trust their abilities a little bit more than being so quick to solve somebody's problem. So those are 3. So here are 4 more. Stress solutions, recharging your batteries. Like I said, the prefrontal cortex is basically powered by rechargeable batteries. If we don't recharge them, we know what happens, right? So if you can recharge frequently or throughout the day, or at least for 2 to 5 minutes at the top of the busiest time of day, your brain will thank you. Okay, so the 4th solution is taking 10 deep belly breaths. Okay, what's the belly breath? Those of you who do any kind of yoga or meditation are aware, and those of you who understand different ways of processing information probably hear it in my voice. Some of us don't take a lot of deep breaths just naturally. We're visual processors. We think quickly. We talk a lot. We don't take too many breaths. So what happens is we compromise our prefrontal cortex. So every once in a while, deep breath in your nose all the way down into your belly button, as if you had a balloon you were filling with air with the breath from your nose. And the reason why that's helpful for your prefrontal cortex, your thinking brain, is because that part of the brain needs oxygen to recharge. Okay, so if you actually are one of those people that, like I, talk really, really quickly, probably don't breathe a lot or breathe just from your chest, you're actually depriving that part of your brain with oxygen. And when you do that, it doesn't work very well. It's like me jumping in my truck and I'm on, driving on fumes. Basically, you don't want to be operating on fumes if you're paid to think. Juggling, actually, you're just disconnecting your prefrontal cortex, and it's a very kind of more of an intuitive rather than an analytical activity. So that gives your prefrontal cortex a break. Just get up out of your desk, or not off of your desk, out of your chair, away from your desk, and just take a brief walk. Change your physiology. Some people probably can sit in one spot and work and focus, for hours and hours at a time. And the optimum level of time to actually pay attention to one thing that you're working on is anywhere between 60 and 90 minutes. 90 minutes is way too long. So make sure you take frequent breaks. And again, stretching, getting up, moving around. I know these sound simple, and many of you have heard of them before, but I can't emphasize enough the benefits to your brain when you do these physical activities. So here are 3 more solutions. We talked a little bit about lizard brain being caused by some words and language that we hear or even use. And the question, why did you, why don't you, why can't you, right? It actually invokes lizard brain in the person we're speaking to and in ourselves as well, because we have to be at a certain level of frustration to be asking that question. So instead of the word why, what I'd like to do is invite you to substitute the word what or how. For example, what have you tried? When you ask that question, and if you first take a deep breath, and ask, what have you tried, in a genuine, empathetic tone of voice, not a sarcastic one or it'll backfire, then basically what you're doing is you are inviting that other person you're talking to, your staff, your team, your employee, you're inviting them to think, okay? You pay them to think, okay? So if you ask it with genuine curiosity rather than frustration, curiosity conveys caring, okay? Frustration conveys or invokes lizard brain. So if you can take a deep breath, I know this sounds strange, but raise your eyebrows, both at the same time, not just one. Take a deep breath, raise your eyebrows, and ask a better question than why. What have you tried? What is one solution you think might work? And then it's important to ask the question and then shut up. And I did say shut up. Ask the question and be quiet. Give people a chance to respond. Okay, they might not have an immediate answer, but give them the space and just listen. Let them think out loud. Your job as a manager isn't to solve everybody's problems, believe it or not. If you've hired the right people and they're in the right position, they have the resources to do their job, then give them the opportunity to answer the question, to be able to think out loud, and not to be right or wrong with that answer, but just explore out loud. And in their process of thinking out loud, they actually might come up with an even better solution than you could have ever come up with for that problem. And they walk away feeling competent rather than stupid, okay? So, if you solve people's problems for them, they walk away going, oh, duh, I should have known that. Why didn't I think of that? If you're too good at solving people's problems, that's how they walk away feeling, and they feel at a level, a certain level, they feel discouraged and kind of stupid and incompetent. So, if you want your people to feel competent, ask them a better question, and then be quiet. Let them think out loud. Then they have their own aha moment, which is a moment of insight. It's actually a nice little brain spike and a little blip of energy on the radar, on the brain radar that makes them feel competent. When we solve a puzzle or we solve a mystery or we figure something out, our brain loves that, and we want our team, our people, to have a lot more aha moments than duh moments. So stop having all the answers if you're a manager. And if somebody does invite you to, for example, into a power struggle, I'll say, and those people that say things, it almost seems like they're picking a fight. This last response, I'm not sure how to answer that, I'll get back to you, works for a couple of reasons. This is a great strategy when somebody wants you to solve their problem for them. You've probably trained them that you will solve their problem instead of helping them think. And if instead you were to respond with, I'm not sure how to answer that, I'll get back to you, that gives them time to think, and making sure that you do get back to them to find out what are some thoughts they had on the solution or the problem. You might find that they find an answer, and then if somebody throws you throws you a hook, if you will, and is saying something that's just chiding you or trying to instigate an argument, just basically responding with, I'm not sure how to answer that or how to respond to that, I'll have to get back to you, again, with genuine empathy, not with sarcasm, is a great way to avoid a conflict. Okay, so those are way more than 7 strategies to basically recharge your brain and eliminate or reduce or even leverage stress. And I'd like at this point in time to see if there are any questions that I can answer about anything, any of the strategies that I have discussed, or any questions you might have in your unique situation with respect to what stresses you out. So if you are on the phone, press star 2 and to raise your hand and ask a question. If you are on the webcast, type in your question in the Q&A box, please, on the left-hand side. So we'll take some time to answer some questions, and then let's talk about how you can take action. Okay, I'm going to pause for a minute here. You're going to hear silence while I'm checking the webcast and checking the phones to see if we have any questions or comments. So if you have any comments about what is one strategy that you either found surprising or you think might be one that you would like to try. You go ahead and type it in for me, and we can answer any questions for you. Okay, I don't see. Excuse me, I don't see any hands so far on the webcast. I'm sorry, or on the phone. And let me see if I have any questions on the webcast. Okay, can everybody hear me? Star 2 to raise your hand if you can still hear me. And type in yes or no if you are on the webcast. Hopefully I haven't lost anybody here. It's awfully quiet. I think when people are at work, sometimes it's really hard to interact, and I certainly understand that. So, okay, don't have any questions or comments so far. Oh, wait a minute, I have a question. Okay. Okay, so we have somebody from Washington, D.C. who has a question. Okay, I think if you press, let me see here, I'm going to go ahead and put it in interactive mode. Okay, so here we go. I can hear you typing. Do you have a question or a comment? Oh, hello, if you are from Washington, D.C. and you've raised your hand and have a question or a comment.
I'm not sure if that's me or not. This is Tracy in Washington, D.C. I just wanted to let you know that, yes, I can still hear you. This is very interesting, and I am participating.
Oh, hi, Tracy. Can you hear me okay?
I can. I was a little late joining because of some connection, but I was able to hear you.
No problem. No problem. So how about any questions, comments, or thoughts? Anything you're surprised about or not surprised about that you've heard so far today? Oh, okay. You might have muted yourself. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and keep it in interactive mode. So if you do have a question or comment, just feel free to say something. So like I said in the beginning, you don't want to be like one of those frogs sitting on a log and deciding to jump off or thinking that something sounds like a good idea or makes sense, any of these strategies whatsoever, or any that you have thought about or realized as we've gone through the information here today. So we really want to talk about how we can keep it going. Like I said, understanding is incredibly overrated. And I'd love to give you the opportunity to, right here, take a moment and say, what is one strategy that you've heard that you want to try to take action on to do an experiment and see if you get a result from that. Okay. And again, I know people are at work, so it's really hard to have a conversation. Let me tell you a little bit about how you can take action to eliminate and leverage stress. I'd like to announce the second run, actually, of a 6-session group training and coaching program. It starts 11/27. And again, I think it's most important to not just have an idea, but have a way to be accountable, to answer, to ask questions, to be able to take any of these strategies and be able to use them and apply them truly for how you experience stress at work. So, one of the biggest challenges that you face as a leader at any level is the stress that comes from those sources. There's the internal stress, which are worries and fears and all the what-if thoughts that keep you up at night. There's external stress, things like unrealistic deadlines, overwhelming workload, having too much to do, too little time, and basically faced with a global economy and competition that is not slowing down anytime soon. And then there's the people stress, of course, having to deal with difficult or just plain crazy bosses, trying to get along with rude team members, trying to figure out what motivates people, whether they're a different generation or same generation, trying to resolve the conflict that maybe the drama king or queen stirs up on your team. So when we have resources to deal with the stress, we can find that we can not only eliminate unnecessary stress. We want to keep the necessary stress because we do need that to a certain level for performance. But oftentimes, I think people are just so isolated. So what I'm doing is I'm putting together this group that is a 6-session group. It's a very small number of people because I like people to be able to network and be able to have conversations during the group process. So it's a virtual group that basically is going to help you be able to respond rather than to react to stressful situations, to see why stress and conflict is actually an opportunity as a leader for you to be able to build resilience, coping, and communication skills in your team and help them be more resilient and bounce back rather than get dragged down by setbacks. So in this virtual coaching group, the Sustainable Leaders Masterclass, you are not only going to be able to leverage and eliminate stress for yourself, but also it's kind of a trainer model so that you're going to be able to do it for your team. One of the CEOs that is participating in the current group right now told me that with just one of the techniques that she learned in the second or third class, I believe, I think it might have been the second class. I think she had to miss the first one. She was traveling. But anyway, so she not only used it to eliminate stress and found immediate relief for a problem that she was having to downsize this time of year, but she also took the strategy that she learned called the ACE approach to change. It's called 3 Simple Steps to Change Anything, and I show you how to do this in this workshop. So she showed it to her team. So she actually had 2 teams figuring out how to solve a problem using the technique that she learned. So I think that eliminating, reducing, or leveraging stress is critical and fundamental to achieving your personal and professional goals and ensuring your effectiveness as a leader, a manager, or both. Okay, so we're going to learn the ACE approach to change, and basically ACE is awareness, choice, execution, and repeat. Basically, it's 3-step, and I call it 4-step because we have to repeat it, kind of like shampoo. It's a very simple strategy. However, it's extraordinarily effective. But as with anything, you can attend a class or read a book or listen to a webinar, get an idea, and change nothing. So you don't want to do that. You want to be able to take these concepts and apply them. So I really want you to be able to learn, apply, and tweak a very few fundamental or yet advanced communication skills so that you can use them in real time at work. I want to be your secret weapon, basically, with a background and over 20 years of experience in psychology, in relationships, and in leadership development. It's quite a unique combination. I can actually help you apply these at work and continue to apply them to get lasting and real change. So basically, I want to be able to share this unique blend of knowledge and experience in relationships, leadership development, and the brain science, which is what you need to know, behind motivation and communication in the Sustainable Leaders Masterclass. Take action to eliminate stress for busy managers, leaders, and for your team. And what I'm going to share with you will finally reduce your overwhelm, help you get more done in less time, do your best work, become the best boss, and not like your worst boss, but become the best boss, who can motivate your team to be more innovative and creative. And most of all, what's most important, and I think that many of my clients report this very quickly after using these strategies, that you can start to feel more satisfied and happy at work rather than it being such a source of stress and futility. So the Sustainable Leaders Masterclass, Take Action to Eliminate Stress for You and Your Team, is a 6-session virtual coaching and training program and accountability program. It is limited to 12 participants. It's going to start on the 27th of November, which are the first 4 Tuesdays, the 27th, the 4th of December, the 11th of December, and the 18th of December, and then Thursday, the 27th of December, and January 3rd. And there's 2 session times. We have 10:30 a.m. Mountain Time to 11:30 Mountain Time, and we also have session B, which is 8 p.m. Mountain Time to 9 p.m. Mountain Time. I have quite a few people who are in other countries and who really appreciate that different time zone. So if you are interested in joining the class now, before the 23rd, basically there's a button on the left-hand side of your webcast. You can click Join Now. When that happens, you will basically be able to register for the class and get in for the price of $397 rather than $997. So after 11:23, the price does go up to $997 for all 6 classes, and it's only $397 before 11:23. And with that, if you sign up in one of the first 6 people to enroll, you will also get a private 30-minute leadership strategy session so you can identify your sources of stress and a unique plan to resolve those. That's included. And the second bonus is a 75-minute webinar and downloadable audio program, 21 Ways to Eliminate Stress, Myths and Solutions for Busy Professionals, Managers, and Leaders. And so this is audio as well as a webinar program that is packed with information, but it's a self-study course so that you can learn on your own. And that is actually typically priced at $147, is also included. So, so if you have any questions about the masterclass or today's presentation, please let me know by pressing *2. Actually, you don't need to press *2 on your phone. You can if you want to, and I'll call on you, but you can also just ask a question, or you can also type in a question on the webcast. So comments, questions about the masterclass, you can sign up today at sustainable-leaders.com/stress. And that's where you can get more information about the masterclass as well as answer, as well as sign up on that page if you choose to. So, questions? And if nobody has any questions, I'd like for you to take this opportunity to be accountable and talk about, put out there what's one small thing you are willing to do for, I'd say, at least 2 weeks going forward that you heard today or that you thought about today that was your own unique solution, and you can see if you can get some results about eliminating stress. Okay? So if you are on the phone or if you are on the webcast, what is one small thing you are willing to try to see that makes a difference? And how would you know if it makes a difference? That's another important, I think that's another important thing to think about, is because you want to, you definitely want to be able to measure it in some way, shape, or form. So one small thing you're willing to try. Let's see, I'm going to start calling people out here. I've got Tracy from Washington. I've got Maribel from Caracas. What would you like to add?
I like the idea about avoiding those people who like to pick fights and start discussions. So I'm going to just turn around and say, I'm not sure how to answer that. I'll get back to you.
Excellent, excellent. And make sure, I know it sounds strange, but if you take a deep breath, raise your eyebrows, and just the way you said it, you will convey that with a tremendous amount of caring and curiosity. Clench your teeth, clench your fist, and furrow your eyebrows. Invoke lizard brain, and that might come across as sarcastic, and that will not get you the outcome you're looking for. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Love to hear how it goes, and if also webinar, what the other thing, and I didn't mention this before, I actually have a one sheet. It's called How to Avoid Power Struggles for Managers and Leaders, and that's actually also included. So those responses, not reactions, that I described, which is, how are you going to solve that problem? Not sure how to answer that. I'll get back to you. Those types of, I call them one-liners for managers. They're not made to be flippant remarks, but they're ways to respond rather than react to those people who really, I'm sure you swear that they find your buttons and push them. And respond rather than react. And so those are actually included in that Eliminate Stress workshop. We go through quite a few of those in that webinar as well. So any other questions or comments? Okay, well, I'd like to wrap up our webinar today, and Tracy, I wish you luck in trying that. I'd like for you to notice the response that you not just get from the person that you are avoiding that power struggle with, but also for yourself. You know, when you walk away from that conversation, I will guess that you will definitely feel a difference, and I'd really like you to really focus on just noticing and observing your own response to your response with that. So thanks for participating in 7 Simple Strategies to Eliminate Stress and How to Do More with Less and Have Fun Too. This is Christina Haxton, and I want you to make sure that you become a sustainable leader who is built to last from the inside out and the outside in for not only yourself, but also for your team. And again, thank you for joining me. If you have any questions whatsoever, feel free to send me an email directly, Christina@sustainable-leaders.com. Christina is with a CH. If you have any questions or comments about what you've learned or used or about the Eliminate Stress, Take Action Now Masterclass starting next week. Thank you again to your sustainable leadership.